Hello and welcome to this masterclass in which we're looking at the piece in the stratosphere. Now this piece is an ideal piece for higher grade diplomas or also higher grade medal examinations. Now we're very fortunate to have today here Luke, who has agreed to play this piece to us, and then we'll have a discussion about the piece, and then I'll ask Luke to play a final performance of this for you. So we'll go straight on now and ask Luke to perform for us in the stratosphere. much. So, when you look at the title in the Stratosphere, would you like to tell me how you visualise what this piece is about? What is it about, would you say?
Well, sort of being up high and being sort of above things and looking down, and what's happening to me up in the sky.
So how are you going to get that through? You know, that visualisation that you've got, how are you going to get that through within the music, do you think? What features in the music can help you tell that story?
Well, the triplet could be sort of something's happening or I'm swelling out of control, and I'll put that through with a loud dynamic and playing it rapidly.
Yeah, anything else?
The slow parts on the second page
could
be a sort of starting to come back down to a safer level.
Yeah.
And getting more comfortable and softer as I go through them.
Okay. Right, now it's an interesting piece this, because on paper it looks pretty easy to play, okay? But to actually play it well is very difficult, because you've really got to think about what you're trying to achieve in this piece and what you're trying to do. And it's all about the balance, really. You've got to consider the balance of the parts to give the right effect. So, you know, with the title in the Stratosphere, you're right, you are thinking up high, aren't you? But you're sort of thinking of this sort of floating idea, the floating idea that tends to come through. So everything has to be very floaty when you play. And there shouldn't be any gaps at all. If you imagine a long continuous line from start to finish with this piece. So where there's sections where you change hands, for example, like at bar 25, 24 and 25, you've got to make sure that there's a nice smooth exchange between the hands there, so it feels as though it's very streamlined and there's no break within the actual tune. Now that is very, very difficult to actually achieve. So you need to do a little bit of sort of slow practice on that to try and get it so the hands do join together without a gap there. Now also there are sections where you've got the triplet idea, but you've also got a tune that comes at the top as well. So if you have a look at bar 43, for example, here, what would you say is the most important tune there? Would you say it's the left hand or the right hand?
Would it be the right hand?
It is, yeah. So at that point, even though earlier on the left hand had the sort of major tune, didn't it? If you have a look at bar 21, the triplet idea came through perfectly, didn't it? Because it's on its own. But it's like another tune takes over when you get to bar 43, and the triplet idea has got to go in the background. It's like, you know, another sort of light shining through above the triplets. So it's very, very difficult to actually get those triplets to be played quietly. So that takes a little bit of work. How do you think you could try and get that so it's quieter as you play that bit, that triplet idea there?
Well, I could play it slightly towards against the piano a bit more.
Yeah, and it's a case of sort of stroking the notes a bit more, isn't it, rather than going in on them, so to speak, yeah? So try and stroke the notes a bit more. But I think it would help there, because it is fortissimo, to maybe play the right hand with a bit more force. So it's like using shoulder weight with your right hand, but stroking the keys with your left hand at the same time. So don't be frightened to maybe put accents on the right hand notes there to really bring those out so they really ring out. It's like bells, really, that resonant sound coming through like bells. So, you know, give them a bit more sort of force so that they come out there in your right hand. Okay? Right, going over the page, you see that right hand idea really comes out there beautifully all the way through. Now, what about the ending here? How do you think you're going to approach that to change the mood, if you like, and change the ambience that's in this? What's the most important feature, would you say, from bar 59 onwards?
That it's getting lower.
It's lower, isn't it? But it's also PP marking.
Yeah.
So, una quarter pedal, of course. Yeah. So use the una quarter pedal all the way through that last section, so that you make sure that it's very, very dry in a way with the playing, and that brings another layer to this piece as well if you do that. Right. The most common technical fault with this piece, I find, is counting. Now, you know you've got to do the triplets fast enough, alright? So a lot of people play the triplets at a different tempo to the opening notes, and they've got to be exactly the same tempo. So gauge the speed that you're actually going to play this from how fast you play your triplets at bar 21. Okay? So if you just play me the triplet idea from bar 21 for me, we can gauge how fast you're going to play those chords at the beginning. Alright? So if you just play me, say, from bar 21 through to the bottom of the page there, just in your right hand. Okay? So your opening then is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that is much longer than you think, isn't it? So most people rush those semi-breves at the beginning, and then when they get to the triplets are in trouble because they can't play the triplets fast enough to the same pulse. So do gauge the pulse at the beginning carefully. And a lot of people tend to rush those semi-breves and also rush the tied notes as well. See? So you've got a tied note at bar 7 and 8 there. Make sure you do count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Much, much longer than you think. Okay? Now the same will apply when you go right to the end of the piece. With your counting at the end here, you've got the same semi-breves. So even though the triplets are out of the way, you've still got to count the 8 counts at bar 53 and 57. And then after that, at bar 65 onwards, make sure it's a steady 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't rush those at all. Okay? Right, so shall we give another performance of this now? Okay, from the start. And that completes this performance of In the Stratosphere.